I'm just going to get right started and talk about the primary thing that I'm going to talk about today is changing behavior. I would talk to my boss about the fact that we have to do things differently. We have to get people to do things differently. And he told me a long time ago, he goes, you're an agent of change. You have to be an agent of change. And then I would go in and complain and say, but they're not changing. And he said, you're not driving a speedboat. You're driving an aircraft carrier. You have to settle for 1 or 2 degrees at a time, but you still have to be an agent of change. So part of the way that I'm doing that, or that my team is doing that, is by getting people to expand, trying to get people to unlearn, and trying to get people to ignore things. I'm going to go through that. I'm going to try to give you as little background I can about me or our company, just the stuff that you need, and then get into the topics and hopefully have enough time for some questions and answers. I want to talk about this little diagram here because this is the project that this presentation is based on. We insure nuclear power facilities. We insure, including nuclear power plants, and we inspect nuclear power plants. We have an engineering team, and they will plan an inspection. Some of them have to build an agenda and have that approved. The new guys have to have what they're going to do approved by their directors. Others don't. Others have been at it so long they just know what to do. The agenda generates a confirmation letter. We tell the insureds, we're going to come out, we're going to inspect your plant, we're going to look at this stuff. And then they go do the inspection. And then they come back and they write up a report, and that report gets reviewed and churned around. And then this is where I thought I was coming in. I want the report. I want to put it in a repository. I actually want to put it in a couple of repositories. But we had to expand this process to incorporate all of this because it's just we can't get people interested. If you were just in this session by Billy Kribes, if you're just asking people to add metadata and add tagging to their documents, now you're just adding work to the process. So we wanted to make that a little differently. We were automating a procedure, a process that we've been doing for over 50 years. I actually automated this over 20 years ago when I created AIIM's first shared folders. So a pox upon me. I'm sorry for that. If you look at our shared folders, you'd find probably what you'd find in a lot of companies. Some years we did it by year, so 1998 inspection reports. Some years we did it by person. Some years we did it by facility. So you almost have to have been at AII for 20 years to know how to navigate those folders. We're trying to get rid of that tacit knowledge and trying to make it institutional knowledge so that the people we're hiring now don't have to know, oh, who used to own that facility? What was that facility called before it was called this? The features that we used were some of the more advanced features in SharePoint 2010, but I'm not going to talk about SharePoint, so I'll just throw that out there. Getting back to changing behavior. We need people to do things differently. I mean, we're not going to just take the content from the folders and move it up and have people do things the way they've always done it. But you can't just give people a new set of rules. You can't just say, go do this. This came as a revelation to me over the past couple of years because I'm the IT guy. We're changing behavior that's been learned. I mean, it's in our policies. It's in our procedures. We teach people how to do this when they come on board. So here I come and say, well, we want you to do it differently. Well, that's how I was trained a year ago. The process has been accepted. The process is comfortable. I mean, it's like macaroni and cheese. People like folders. They understand folders. It makes sense to them. They're a direct analogy to the file cabinets that made sense to them all along. So you can't change stuff like that with rules. You have to get people, you have to work to get people to adopt these solutions, and that requires some management support, but the bigger thing that it requires is a good user experience. And I think every session I've been into, people have talked about user experience, so I don't think I'm out on a limb with this one. It has to be useful. It has to address people's needs. People have to want to use the solution you're giving them. And those are the kind of things that we're doing. When I was writing this presentation about a month ago, this tweet came up on Twitter as I was trying to ignore what I was doing. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it's so true. You can have all the plans you want, but you're changing corporate culture. You're changing people's behavior. It's not going to work unless you address those issues. I have a lot of pictures in this presentation, and I'm not going to talk about any of them except this one. I took this on trust are going to break your security. And these are some of the ways they're going to do it. I'm sure if I ask, I could get 10 more examples of ways people will do this. And then you have a real problem. Now you have multiple copies and copies in insecure places, and you've been defeated. We have to expand search. And this is a little bit of ironic slide for me because I've written many times and I talk a lot and I talk in our office about the fact that search is not a substitute for well-organized content. I want people to think about putting stuff where it belongs, and I want like a file plan that says I can go here, then here, then here, then here, then here, and this is where these reports are going to be. But once you get there, it's nice to have some search tools. It's nice to be able to say, all right, I know all the inspection reports are in this library. Now I want to find the ones that talked about groundwater. I want to find the ones that talked about this issue. I want to find the ones that were plants that were owned by this company that owns 15 nuclear reactors. And so we bought a search tool that focuses on that. It's an add-on for SharePoint, but it focuses on that issue. It allows people to do the standard search, but it lets people preview the documents. It ranks the documents they get back. It highlights the words everywhere it's found. It actually ranks the pages of a document within the document. So they go to where they need to go, and then they have this tool to help them. We set up search scopes so the people outside of engineering, when they're looking for a particular plant, in addition to seeing the stuff that they have in their department, they'll see the stuff the engineers have. So they don't have to know that what the whole organization is. They just need to search on this using this search scope. And that's good because, again, having it well organized means, well, I just have to look in this library, and this library, and this library. Now I have a search scope that works and will find everything. So that's all of that stuff is sort of in the category of learning, growing, expanding. And continuous learning has been just a passion of mine forever. I think my father was ahead of his time because when we were kids in the 60s, he would say, don't ever miss an opportunity to learn something. Now I'm realizing, well, okay, somewhere along the line I've learned things I no longer need. I need to start doing some pruning. I need to get rid of things. I don't need my calling card. This is my hot button right now. We need to stop talking about file cabinets. Every time I would talk about content management, people would show me their file drawer. This is what I do. And it's so easy to sort of step into that and say, okay, well, this is like this. A library is like this. And it's like, you know what? No. A library would be like if you could open all 4 file drawers and the cabinet wouldn't fall over and kill you. A library would be like if you could have one document, but it would magically appear in every drawer that you opened in this room. So this analogy just doesn't work anymore. We're making good success, good strides on getting people to stop thinking of discrete documents for discrete steps. So no draft, no final, no final. None of those things are necessary. We have a document and we have versioning. And that's a big change for people. But we're finally being able to get through that. We're not quite so successful on the issue where we have a document that was born digital, it was marshaled through a digital process, it was pushed around by workflows, and it's automatically put into 2 digital repositories, one internal and one for our customers. But we're going to make a copy of that, we're going to print it out, and we're going to put it back in the file drawer. Now, I'm getting some help on that this year because our office manager says we're carving that file room in half and we have to get rid of half those file cabinets. So now people are saying, maybe you could help me. As a practitioner, as a developer, like I said, I'm the IT guy. I grew up building application systems. My blog says unstructured data was the stuff to pile on my desk. And I loved the old days when I could just say, nope, too expensive, can't do that. And they could say, well, what about this package? I could buy this package. No, that's too expensive too. So go away, we're not going to do that for you. We're not going to do that for you this year. We'll do that maybe in 2 years. I can't do that anymore. Those days are gone forever. If I can't give somebody a solution today, they're going to build one of their own or they're going to find one of their own. And they're probably going to violate a bunch of rules in doing it. They're going to put their content somewhere else, somewhere we don't necessarily want it. So I have to be responsive. I have to meet their needs. I have to find creative ways to do that because they're all coming at once. They all want these things now. So I don't have the 5-year, 10-year plan anymore. I have, oh, they want it now. Sort of the inverse of the fire hose effect. Ignoring is something that I've learned that end users have to do and practitioners have to do. We have to learn how to fight our desires, our personal desires, and the nature that we have that says, I should be able to control my destiny. And I have this computer and I have access to all this technology, so I should really be able to control my destiny. This is my favorite one. This happened early on in this process. We automate it and we say, all right, well, you remember that cycle that says this guy has to do an agenda because he's new and his director has to review it. So it goes through this process. We put it up in our library. It goes through this review cycle. It may come back to the engineer a couple times. It generates a letter that goes out. The workflow marshals it through this process. Eventually, it lands on a task list that says, all right, it's ready for someone to look at this and see whether or not we use the right styles and the right fonts and the right logo. And that could take a couple days just because people are in and out of the office. So the guy puts it in the library, runs over to the person that's going to do the styles review and says, I just put this report up there. Well, it's not there. It's not in the library. I can't see it. I haven't gotten a task. I don't have an email. It's not working. The system's not working. So it's really kind of this defeating process. We got people through that, but it's hard to get people to trust that I put this in today, and the system is going to move it through the process, and at the right time, it's going to land on that person's desk, but I might not be here. How do I know it actually landed on that person's desk? How do I satisfy that curiosity of myself? And I'll talk in a minute how we did that. The amazing thing that's always impressed me about systems, computerized systems, as far back as I've been developing them in the 70s, is the fact that people want systems, they want technology to help them do their job better, but they really don't want things to change. So, and it's like, well, you didn't have this ability before. You didn't have a database. You couldn't search. You couldn't do these things. But so, yeah, we change things. We're letting you do your job, and we're helping you do your job, but we are changing things. And again, that comes back to the user experience. I mean, I spent a lot of time as the IT guy saying, no, this is what you get. This is what you get because this is what the development environment I'm using allows me to build. I've told people, you just have to accept this. You have to do this. Can't say that anymore, so we're working through that process with the users to bring them on board so that they can anticipate that change, they can expect that change. Some of these things that go along with that are fairly obvious. We did change it, so why are we still producing paper copies of what we have digital? This is the biggest thing that I've had to learn, and that's that we're not done when we're finished. These systems, content-centric applications, radically different from a development point of view than transaction processing systems. There, it was like a list of hard requirements and a list of hard tests that go along with that, and I could say, I solved all these issues, it all works, I have a test set, I marry the two together, I run it, every test passed, I'm done. Next. There's a lot more moving parts in an information management solution. It's still behavior dependent. We're trying to change behavior, but the process still has behavior as an input. If somebody decides not to do something or decides to delegate something or move something or skip something, it affects the system. The solution that we put in place for these engineers is the first time in about 5 or 7 years that my group actually conducted a post-implementation review. And I learned that, by the way, at AIIM's ECM Masterclass, where I was taught by Bob. So, but it's true. We spent about 4 months. We implemented the system. We taught people how to use it. We helped them. We worked with them. For 4 months, we collected problems, issues, concerns. Problems that were real problems we fixed right away. We didn't make them wait 4 months. But at the end of 4 months, we got them in the room together, and we said, all right, well, these are the things you've told us you don't like, or these are the things you've told us you would like. Are you still of that opinion? It's been 4 months. Now you know how to use the system. Some of the things we don't like, okay, they're gone now because, you know what, we actually do like them. We just didn't like them at first because it wasn't the way we've always done it. And then we started to hear about things that we didn't even know people could do in the solution we gave them. And they're finding ways to do things. They're finding ways to do helpful things. And of course, they're finding ways to do things to run it off the rails. All of this stuff had to be digested, collected, and addressed. And one of the things that we had to start looking at was a dashboard and some analysis on this, because when you have a folder system, at least when you do find the folder, you have a pretty small set of stuff in it. When you take a bunch of documents and you add a lot of metadata columns, and you add row upon row upon row of documents, it's ugly. It becomes very ugly. It becomes something that I would much rather go back and look at a folder view in Windows Explorer than look at this view in SharePoint. And we set up structured views, so you could say, I only want to look at open reports. I only want to look at this. We have about 21 different views, but nobody knows which one to use for what I want to do. So we built a management dashboard that says, there have been 45 reports this year. 35 of them are done. 10 are still open. You want to look at those 10? Click here. We'll bring that view. 4 of the 10 are actually just about overdue. You want to look at those 4? Yes. Of the 45 that we've done, Bob's done 6 of them. Do you want to look at Bob's report? Yes. So we have this one-page dashboard. It'll never be more than one page. It includes the information about, the summary information about what we're doing this year. It has comparative data to what we did last year, and it works really well. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is, remember, they have a day job. It's the most popular blog entry I ever wrote. They don't do this for a living. They do what they do for a living. We have to understand what they do for a living. We have to know what we do cold, and we have to marry the two together. We can't ask them to come too far into our world.